DSA, DMA.
Is this the European thing?
Okay, well, look at you being on top of it.
That was a shot in the dark. I just thought, what does this stand for? I don't even know.
Digital Services Act and like Digital Marketing Act or whatever. But so there's a Reuters report that talks about them because they passed this stuff today. This is the big deal. And there's one sentence, paragraph, whatever you want to call this thing, I'm going to pull out of this write-up that I think is important, and I cannot wait for it to happen. It says companies will not be allowed. They have a spelling error. Companies, starting over, will not be allowed to favor their own services over rivals or prevent users from removing pre-installed software or apps. Two rules that will hit Google and Apple hard.
And actually Microsoft too.
Yeah.
Well, to a lesser degree, I guess.
Yeah.
You can pretty much remove everything. Interesting. This comes up. It's going to keep coming up. Regulators, governments, rules, laws, lawsuits will happen, and things will change. I just wrote about this. This might have been feels like a million years ago because this was a long weekend, and I literally spent the entire time working on the book. But I think it was Friday. Someone asked about how Amazon had to change the Kindle and Audible apps on Android so that you couldn't purchase content from within the stores. And the question was kind of like, is this indicative of a falling out in this relationship, And no, I think it has to do with this pending regulation lawsuit stuff that Google realized that, first of all, Google always had the rule that was the case, but they just didn't enforce it. So they started telling people, companies were going to start enforcing this. So the situation on Android is now as it is on iPhone and iPad, where you can't buy this content because, razor thin margins in this market, right? You're not going to give 30% of nothing to Apple or Google for doing nothing. And that's what so they change. And I really think this is about Google setting itself up for this future because these fee structures are going to go down dramatically. It's not going to be 30% for Amazon. It's going to be more like a credit card fee, like 3% or 2%. And they're going to do everything they can to make it as high as they can. But these companies understand that. And I think things are going to change. And this thing you're pointing out, these two new acts, the two laws, I guess we'll call them, are one step of many toward this future that will make this stuff less terrible. So yeah, it's just going to keep happening.
I also I'm hoping this applies, especially for the friends on Android. I think Samsung does this. I don't know, but some of them do, where it is installed with Facebook and you can't remove it.
That's right. Yeah, Samsung does do that. Yeah, Samsung. It's funny. They're better in some ways. I think their store overall is less onerous, maybe to developers or the users. But yeah, that's one of the goofy things about Samsung. Amazon does the same thing too. By the way, we don't really talk about this a lot, but these Fire tablets and all this stuff. There's a bunch of. First of all, you can't install the Google Play Store without doing a side loading thing. A lot of little hacky workarounds for that. But a lot of their apps, same thing. Like those devices are front ends to everything Amazon sells to individuals. So they want you to they want that in your face. They want you to see it. They want you to click on it. They want you to buy things that, and that's fine. I mean, it's understandable. This is commerce. It's not a charity, but yeah, they've just, these companies have all bent the rules enough to make things problematic for people and for partners and developers and everything else. So
yeah, we'll see. I think this is going to have some pretty significant impact. The question will become, will it trickle over to here being the U.S.?
Yeah, it will, I bet. I've already forgotten what it was. There was an EU, the EU passed something recently where the U.S., it's the USB standard.
Type C.
The U.S. government is now examining this. And I think another country, maybe, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Some other country. Maybe the UK. It doesn't matter. Some other country is also looking at that. And that's how these things happen. You look across the pond and you're like, oh, look what they're doing over there. We should do that. That makes sense. And vice versa. We'll see. But we live in a world where these companies are just too powerful and they're kind of unrestrained. And we can talk all, the laws haven't caught up with the tech. Whatever. Anti-competitive is anti-competitive. It's not. I guess we can look at very specific things and create very specific laws, but the antitrust laws, as they stand, I think, are are fine for persecuting and prosecuting these companies.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Can you imagine a world where Microsoft can't force you to use Bing with Windows 11? Can you imagine how much that share is going to drop of Bing usage?
Yeah, well, okay. Actually, that's a great example. There you go. The default app thing from Windows 11 is a great example.
Yeah, can't change it.
And it's also, there's an interesting strategy thing there, because I feel, I see this like this happens on Windows Weekly. It probably happens in other discussions about technology. So the original version of Windows 11 comes out, and there's no default app thing you can change with web browsers. And it's like, guys, what are you doing? And you can look into it and you can figure out what it is. And you're like, well, here are the 4 or 5 file, document or protocol connections you can make that will basically do everything you want, but it won't stop widgets from still opening in Edge. It won't stop, start search from still opening in Edge, yada, yada, yada. So all these complaints come in, and Microsoft sees what's going on in the world. So for the second version, actually, I think they released it earlier than that, but at least for the second version, now there's a set that says your default browser button, and everyone's like, oh, okay, they did it. Let's walk away. We're done. And it's like, guys, hold on a second. All they did was that button does the 4 or 5 document protocol things I was just talking about. It doesn't fix anything else. This discussion is still, they did like a waving of hands. It's satisfying. A lot of people are like, it's fine. Like, wait. I have chosen to use Firefox or Chrome or Brave or whatever it is. Like, what are you talking? I should never see Edge, but you'll see Edge a lot, and that's the strategy. That's the thing you have to deal with until explicitly it comes down. You cannot do that anymore. And this EU thing you just pointed out should prevent exactly that kind of behavior.
Yep, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see, and also take a long-term view, because it's the EU and everything happens slowly. So 2 years from now, there'll be an investigation of, well, it will start with Google and Apple, of course, because they're the worst. Amazon, Facebook, maybe, whatever it is. We'll get to Microsoft, maybe, but these things take years and years and years and years. You can appeal multiple times. There are compromises and settlements you can make. They'll find out later that Google or Apple, Microsoft, whoever has agreed to do something, and it will be 2 years later, and some competitor will complain that they're not doing what you said they were doing.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll have to have another, and it's just a game we're going to play for the rest of our lives.
And I also wanted to, how deep is it going to go? As an example, the Microsoft Store. Can that be?
Could it be? Sure. By the way, why not?
Yeah.
Right. Well, why not is you have apps you might run every day that are updated through the store. I mean, this is that's a really good example, Brad. This is actually very much.
That's why I got up today.
Explorer. Well, no, it really is. It's you embed something so deeply in the operating system that you can now make an argument that it's core to the operating system, and removing it will harm users. And Microsoft in the early 2000s, late 1990s, whenever it was, delivered a version of Windows that was broken on purpose to prove their point, where they stripped IE out of it, and now nothing worked anymore. You're like, see, and it's like, no, you arbitrarily made it that way. You don't. It doesn't have to be that way. That's the way you made it, and you did it for this reason, because you were trying to harm competitors in that case, and this was how you were going to fix that problem. And by the way, it worked great, but whatever. So. Yeah, exactly. And that Google today is making this argument too. They're saying, well, hold on a second. You want us to remove all these things or let people? Well, now you're decreasing the security and reliability of the system. You're harming users by doing this.
Yep.
Your government wants to, give up your privacy and your security so they can make some vague benefit for our competitors. And it's like, that's not what this is about. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of that. There's no doubt about it.
I bet it's not going to manifest on Windows first. They're going to go after mobile first, for sure. And they're going to be like, look, you've got an app store on Android. It ships with it. That's the default. And then everybody's going to be like, well, we got to abide by whatever they decide in that scenario.
Yeah, and Apple, especially
Apple's
Google, based on what they're doing right now, they're going to play the Microsoft card. They're going to do the same belligerent pushback. And by the way, it's because billions and billions of dollars are at stake here. This is this is their business model.
Yep.
And you can talk about how different they are on either side, whatever, but literally this is how they make money on this stuff. So they're going to push back.
Oh yeah, there's an intern or a lower level lawyer on the Apple legal team who's just reading through the old Microsoft right now. Like, how did they approach it? How did they defend themselves? What can we extract
and look
from
at what
this?
happened, like long game. The thing, I think the lesson of the Microsoft stuff, the antitrust stuff, is that despite all the belligerence and pushback and everything, that stuff actually hobbled Microsoft, and it allowed Apple and Google and whatever to move forward and claim these new markets and kind of take over. But on the other hand, if you look at the specifics of it, all the stuff that was like the stuff Microsoft did wrong or illegal, I mean, what were the lasting impacts of that really? I mean, IE still shipped in Windows forever. There was a browser ballot thing only in the EU, but most people still used IE. Well, that's actually not true over time, is it? They went to Chrome. But, Windows, Microsoft would have actually been better off. Its users would have been better off if they just said, okay, and they just fixed Windows. It wouldn't have prevented the world from changing, but it might have put Microsoft might have been less distracted and could have better responded to the rise of web services, web apps, web search, mobile. That's all. I mean, I think if they're reading it closely, the real lesson for those companies is don't do that. Even though you could make the argument at some petty level, Microsoft emerged at the end where they basically got most of their US stuff pushed out, and the EU stuff was like, whatever. By that point, it was like, who cares? Like, it just wasn't as big of a deal. But those companies would be better off compromising, which is, by the way, what the Google thing I was talking about earlier. I think they want to be on even footing with Apple so they can compromise in the same exact way and get the fees down to 5% or something, at 10%, whatever, make up a number. It doesn't matter. It's more than the 0% they were collecting from Amazon before. And that's really why they're doing it. They're setting themselves up for the future.
What's going to be hilarious. Hilarious in my own simple brain of three neurons.
It's the Godzilla versus King Kong grab the popcorn moment. It's like you like to see this.
Here's what's going to happen, and I will laugh for hours about it. So, Paul, you may remember the browser ballot, right? Microsoft threw them into shambles. They took Edge, they rebuilt it, or they took Internet Explorer, rebuilt it, rebranded, whatever. They are just now getting to a position where they're starting to claw back market share. Just starting to get there. And now this ruling comes out from the EU, and it's like, well, you can't bundle stuff together, and they're going to have another screen, and all their hard work is going to be faded away.
Yeah, but you know what? We're just talking, and so this stuff is sort of occurring to me. It's not like we prep for this, but Microsoft is a great example of a company that was so set in its ways, and if it just could have adapted, it could have done things like make IE then Edge this separate thing available everywhere, open, and something people would choose because it has better features, not because it's just there. They could have open sourced .NET way before they did and made that the default programming environment, not just for Windows, but for everything. They could have done that years ago when it would have made a difference, and could have done, WPF type things cross-platform or whatever. They could have embraced the web a million years ago, and that could have become the programming model. We could have had these incredible rich web apps that would have worked everywhere, not just Windows. And Microsoft would have benefited because those things were all running off of Microsoft 365 or Azure, whatever it is in the back end. But you don't have that foresight. They did what they did. History happened. But that's what I mean. Like Apple, Google, whatever, they need to look at that and not just look at the ruling and how it happened and how Microsoft was able to push it back, but whatever. They should make these changes now so they direct the future, not have the future be directed for them, which is the problem with antitrust. That's the argument against antitrust, that we have government employees making design decisions for software products, which is not what anyone really wants, right? Which is why you should compromise and prove to them that what you're doing makes sense and is better for whatever constituent groups are concerned about. And that's what I hope they do. But I see what they're doing now, and I'm like, yeah, they're not moving in that direction, are they? So we'll see.
I wonder if they'll overregulate this podcast.
No more two idiots talking.
That's going to take out a wide swath.
It's half the internet.